Let's see how the corn is doing now. It's at that proverbial sort of knee-high stage, and it's just past the 4th of July. So traditionally, knee-high by 4th of July would be an aspirational goal. This year, these days, that's a bit late. But last time we were out, the corn was just struggling to push through this mulch of vetch. All the vetch is now decomposed. We've got this mat that looks almost like some kind of filter, which it is. And it's doing a pretty good job so far of suppressing weeds. There are a few coming up, but basically we've got pretty good weed control and a pretty decent stand of corn. There are a few skips. Don't know what happened to this little guy. Here's a little guy that didn't quite make it. But for the most part, we've got a pretty good stand in the neighborhood of about 27,000 plants per acre, up close to 60,000 per hectare. That's what we've counted. Well, let's see how they're doing below ground. Let's see what's going on below ground. Let's find a corn plant that we can sacrifice here. This looks like a good place. Let's take a look at this guy. I'm going to dig down. Now, we haven't had much rain at all. We've had less than a third of the normal rainfall so far this year. And this is a very sandy soil. So if this were tilled and exposed to evaporation, these plants would be suffering. But since it's all protected by this blanket, I'm willing to bet that the soil is pretty moist down there and that the corn roots are able to grow. Now this is what's, you could go to the garden center and buy this, but we grew it in place. And remember, we had legume, hairy vetch, and a little bit of rye. And this plot didn't have much rye. And we rolled it down and just killed it by breaking the stems. No chemicals involved. And for the most part, that took care of it. So here's our corn plant. Now let's take a look at the surface. This is what was under the mulch. You can see that there's no evidence of rain having sealed it. It's got structure all the way through and roots growing right at the surface. So under the no-till condition, under this mulch, it stays moist and cool enough at the surface so the fine feeder roots can be taking nutrients that are coming out of this cover crop. So the cover crop is quickly decaying because it's a legume, it's high in nitrogen, really good quality stuff for the microbes. Oh, can we zoom in on this little guy? See him crawling, a little tiny white guy? That's Collembola. This soil is full of life. This soil has not seen much tillage over the last 30 or 40 years. It did get tilled to kill the alfalfa last summer, but very little tillage and no tillage since last summer. And so it's just full of insect life, arthropod life, and of course you can't see the microbes, but you can see the roots, and around each of these roots is a rhizosphere that's just crowded with microbes. Sometimes you can see some of them. There's some fungal hyphae here by my thumb. It's really hard to pick up a handful of soil here without finding an earthworm. And an earthworm is pretty much at the top of the food chain. The earthworm is eating the decaying organic matter, but what it's really eating is the microbes growing on it. So it's a little bit like a bald eagle eating the fish in the lake. Having an earthworm, just like having lions or bald eagles, is a pretty good sign that the rest of the ecosystem below it is its food source. It's pretty healthy. Let's see what we've got here around the corn plant. Break this open. Now you can see this upper part. It's much darker than down here. Let me get a little bit of this soil to compare. I think you can see that now when I hold them next to each other. This upper, about 4 inches, 10 centimeters or so, is what's accumulated under the no-till regime. And here we have really the essence of soil health is what's happening in the top 10 centimeters here. Now we did have a little rain last night. Here's another earthworm. So really, as I said, you can see he's a little green inside from having, here's another earthworm here. As I said, you can't get a handful of this soil without finding earthworms, which is telling you it's full of microbes, because that's what the earthworms are living on. Another one of these stones. So this is probably up around, there's another big earthworm here. Now, I've gone many sandy soils that are growing crops like corn, like we're growing here, under tillage. And you can look all day and you won't find any earthworms at all. They don't particularly like a sandy soil, but if you leave it alone so that they can create channels and create habitat, they will thrive even in a pretty sandy soil. Let's take a look at these roots to see how they're doing. Give it a good shake. Okay, what we like to see are these roots growing straight down. Here's a side root that broke off. Lots of nice fresh white root growth. You can see evidence of the rhizosphere by this coating of soil that's on that actively growing root. See how it's holding on to a coating of soil? If we brush that off and analyze this soil, it would probably have dozens of times more microbes than the soil that's farther away from the root, because one of the jobs of the root, of course, is to feed its microorganisms, its microbiome, just like we have to feed our gut microbiome. So, pretty happy with the direction of these roots. There's no obvious inhibition of downward growth. It seemed to have found channels, old root holes, and the nice things about not tilling is those old channels that the great-grandfathers produced are still there. And you can see the corn is doing pretty nicely. It's dark green. There's been no fertilizer applied to this plot this is the 4th year without any fertilizer. We did apply a little bit of manure 4 years ago, but most of the nutrients that this corn is using are what the cover crop brought up from deep below or fixed from the air and depositing on the surface as it decomposes. It's just releasing these soluble nutrients. Okay, that should look nice. So this is one of the treatments here where we had this growing in a perennial hay crop for 4 years, and we got a nice cover crop. It was almost 100% vetch, and that's done a good job of suppressing weeds.